Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Erin, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Welcome to this episode. Today we will be discussing a hot topic in medicine. And I'm here with my super co-host, Dr. Erin Hurley. She's a pediatrician as well as a physician coach. And Erin and we talk on the phone and we catch up as friends. And she was telling me that recently, while she was at a doctor's appointment, she was talking to one of them and hearing about all these stories of different doctors in medicine and what they're going through. And this young doctor who decided to retire. And I don't know all the details, so I'll let Erin talk about it. But we thought, what a great topic for us to talk about, because it's still kind of hush-hush, or people just don't really discuss the real reasons. And we figure, why not bring it up? So Erin, start there. Tell me about what really happened and what got your attention in this conversation.
So this past couple of days, I've been playing patient. So I had my annual oncology follow-up. So got to go through imaging and then met with my oncologist and my surgeon. And I had this conversation. They're both very personable people. And my oncologist shared, as I was talking about being a coach for women in medicine, but I wasn't practicing medicine anymore. And she was talking about a friend, colleague, who was, I don't know, age 50 or somewhere around there, who quit medicine, and it was a female oncologist, because she didn't feel like she could keep going. She was so burnt out. And in the last episode, Joanne, you and I talked about having clarity. What do we want in our lives? And here's this person, so well trained, so well needed in medicine. We're short physicians, short staffed, and yet they just weren't able to sustain what they were doing. And so it just kind of hit me going, what else can we do? And maybe for some people, retiring at that age is what they want. And yet for others, I think with some adjustments in not only the medical culture, but maybe their mindset, which we talk about all the time, are there things we can be doing better in order to help physicians have a sustainable career that has a lifestyle that they are excited about or happy about or able to continue, instead of just like, I got to throw in the towel, I can't do it anymore. So that just started this conversation. It just made me think, let's talk about some of those things, because if you don't feel like you have any agency over your circumstances, that everybody else is making decisions for you, we've talked about this before. Actually, when it comes down to it, you probably have more control over your outcomes than you think. It's not to say medicine's easy, but it's saying, I wonder how we can change our circumstances simply by changing our mindset.
Yes, so powerful. And from what you know, and because I know you're doing a lot of work with other women in medicine and physicians in general, and a lot of leadership, what are some of the things that you've heard and also kind of what we know research-wise of why physicians are leaving medicine now at rates that we've never seen?
One of the big things is burnout. And I've heard small rumors, little inklings that maybe burnout rates are starting to show some decline, because they've just been going up and up and up. And for many specialties, emergency department medicine, over 60% burnout. And in primary care, all the different primary care fields, over 50% of burnout rates. And that's just, those numbers are not sustainable and significantly increased from years past. And unless we can decrease those levels of burnout, that's one of the risks for turnover. So either leaving your position, leaving where you're working, or quitting medicine, or decreasing your full-time status, so decreasing to part-time status or cutting your hours, for many seems like the only way out. So burnout, huge factor in people leaving medicine. For many, it's a lack of support. And, whether they're not feeling supported by their family or feeling supported by the environment that they're working in medicine, or even if they're working for themselves, the financial margins for running a medical business are so much smaller that any little error, any little mishap, anybody not producing enough can be the difference between your organization, your little clinic, making it or not. And I think that there's a lot of isolation and lack of community. So oftentimes we're talking about topics here on this podcast because people aren't having those conversations at the office or with their colleagues who are physicians, because they might think, I'm the only one with this problem. I'm ashamed. Why is it a problem for me? And it may be your office mate next door has the same problem, but they're not talking about it either. So this isolation, I think, in lack of community and even lack of asking for help, because there's stigma, whether it's asking for mental help or whether it's expressing the struggles that you're having, because we're so smart and so good at problem solving that it oftentimes gets in the way of us asking others to help us out, even when we desperately need it. And then by the time we're ready, then we may just be like, it's too late, I'm out.
What comes to mind in hearing you say all of that, and this is something that I talk a lot about, it's how we're programmed for that doctor programming that we have in our brain, and especially kind of the later generation. Hopefully the newer generation is different, of work hard, RVUs, see a lot of patients, right? In that definition of success that we have, and how that badge of honor, like I was the one here the latest, and how that doctor programming puts us at risk of burnout. And that same doctor programming keeps us from asking for help. And there's kind of having to go deep into what we've learned and the examples that we've had. And then that also is a big part of what leads to isolation and how we suffer in silence of, I am the only one struggling here. I'm not supposed to say that out loud. But then what's the risk? You just deal with it. You don't, right? Like you just go. And then your brain kind of tunnel visions you into thinking the only way out is quitting. The only way out, it's early retirement. And we've talked about it. It's not like it's a bad thing. We just want it to be an intentional and planned, that because you're envisioning something different in your future, and not because you're so burned out or depressed or you feel like, you cannot do it anymore. And I hear that a lot. It always saddens me. Thank you for bringing this up.
And another area that I think adds to this is the term cog in a wheel. Lots of people feeling like they're just a cog in the wheel, that they don't matter. And also this productivity that seems to be driving medicine, where it's not that you're having this super engaging interaction with the patient because you've got so many patients to see, this pressure to see one more patient, to get the evaluations done, having 15-minute appointments when maybe you need longer. And so it really, I think, drives a wedge between our ability to create meaningful relationships with our patients, who are the very reason why we're there. And when you depersonalize that relationship that we're used to having, it takes away some of that magic of why we went into medicine, to make those connections. And so I've seen changes. I started practicing medicine back in 1997, aging myself a bit. But there was a very different tempo in pediatrics where, we didn't see 30 patients a day every day year round. We might have seen a dozen patients or even less in the summer, because people were on vacation and our schedules weren't so jam full. And that was okay. It allowed us time to get projects done. And then we would be racing our tails off in the wintertime with all the flu and the hospitalizations. And maybe we're seeing 25 to 30 kids a day in the wintertime. And that was a more sustainable thing because there was ebb and flow, super busy, and then a little bit more relaxed. And it seems like there's a lack of that. There's not white space in the schedule for so many reasons, reimbursement and demand. And that's too deep to go in for this. But I believe that lack of, you don't need a 30-minute appointment to connect with a patient. You can make a deep connection in a handful of minutes, but you also need to figure out how to make that happen. And so if we don't feel deeply connected with our patients, sometimes I think that's a reason people may leave as well. I haven't seen research on that, but that's just one of my theories.
I have a tangent that popped into my head because I work with medical students, and I like to ask them, what do you know what you want to do, or and a lot of I usually get them sort of towards the beginning of the third year, so they have an idea, but a lot of them haven't decided. And I always tell them, think of what gives you a sense of self and how, because if you're someone who likes that immediate gratification and you like a team and right, like that sharing of the experience, maybe do something surgical. Or like I joke that the father of my kids is an interventional cardiologist, and there's this, it's amazing what they do, that someone comes in with a heart attack and they have it on video, like the blood flow to the heart is not going. And then they go in, they, with a lot of care, they put in a wire, it opens the arteries. Patient is alive and well. And then there's another video of this beautiful flow through the heart. Talk about immediate gratification, not to minimize that career. It's, so incredible what they do. But that's a way that we kind of pat ourselves in the back. Or, like an orthopedic surgeon, you come in with a broken leg, and then, you go in, you operate, you do all the pins and all those things that I know nothing about, right? Like, that's amazing. And you get that nice, right? Like you're able to get so much joy in helping someone that way. But if you need that, probably don't go into psychiatry or even pediatrics, or even, I guess you have a good mix, I can imagine, or I don't know, endocrinology, rheumatology. These are more like chronic illness where, we don't see those results right away. And I get a lot of sense of self in that relationship that I build with the patient and in the connection. So all that to say, you have to really connect with those things that you really enjoy in medicine, because that's what's going to, even if it's difficult, it's going to keep your fuel going. And that's what's going to keep you with a sense of balance as well. Even if you're working a lot, which is kind of the other big thing that I hear a lot of why people want to quit medicine or reduce their hours significantly, because we are programmed to be on balance with it, to think that medicine is 1, 2, 3, no matter what. Right. And have that kind of martyr mentality that I cannot do anything else because I'm a doctor first, and kind of shifting those identities and grabbing that hold of yourself and that sense of gratification and grab that sense of balance again.
Yeah. And that self-awareness. I love that. And it may be that, you might find different circumstances at a different location that has a different focus, that has different leadership. As opposed to just assuming that, where you're working is where it is everywhere. I've seen many individuals be able to change their mindset and stay where they're working with some coaching and with some mindset shifts and support. And I've also seen some people recognize, I can't survive here. It's a mismatch for my skill set. It's like the statement about, or the saying about a fish trying to climb a tree. They're going to look terrible. They're going to be a failure, a fish trying to climb a tree. But you put the fish in water and they're swimming, then you put them in the right environment, they may be able to thrive. So my hope is maybe this will give our listener, if they have worries about, can I keep this up? Maybe some ideas of, maybe there's a better match for my skills and how I do medicine that will allow me to succeed and sustain.
Erin, I have a question. What do you believe are the reasons why we're seeing actually more of a shift in women doctors in comparison to men, like either going part-time or leaving medicine altogether?
Oh, I have so many statistics to share. And this is, I was very surprised when I started researching, when I was trying to figure out how to help physicians and healthcare providers chart more efficiently, because after hours charting is such a big deal. And I came up with so many statistics. And unfortunately, they all stack against women. I couldn't find any that were in our favor. And I've shared some of these on prior episodes. One is that women spend more time. So in outpatient primary care, women physicians tend to spend 2 minutes or more with each patient. And it may not sound like a lot, but when you multiply that by how many patients per day, per week, per year, women physicians are spending hours longer with their patients than men. Partner that with women physicians, the last time I researched it, are spending a full 1.5 times longer in the electronic health record than their male physician counterparts. I think it was 66 minutes versus 108 minutes. And so when you look at the average of how much time physicians are spending charting after hours, it's over 9 hours a week on average. But what I've recognized is I've worked with some clients who are working, putting in 20 plus hours a week of after hours charting. And then there's some who do it in real time and are doing almost none, and everything in between. And unfortunately, the women spend a good 1.5 times longer than the men counterparts. And then you go towards, higher divorce rates. So age correlated women physicians have higher divorce rates. And you think about the emotional toll, the time toll, the financial toll. There's also decreased pay for women physicians. So putting in the same hours, doing the same job, getting less reimbursement. All of those things have an additive effect. And those are just the statistics in medicine. And then you look at the other statistics, at least in the US, and women spouses tend to put in, or women partners, more work and more time on child care and household running. And so all of that added up, that's a lot of burden to be carrying. And we also struggle to let go. Men tend to kind of walk away from it easier. Then they come home and like, I'm done with my day. So they're not continuing to work, and they're done with their patient care, and they can let go of that a little easier. So it just adds up. And the good thing is that women physicians tend to have better outcomes with their patients. And that's great and all, but I ask, at what cost? What is it costing? And if that means they're walking away from medicine, because the way women do medicine is very different from the way men practice medicine based on the research. And it's not leading to great results as far as women succeeding and sustaining long-term in medicine, which is worrisome, because the percentages of women going into medicine are over 50% in U.S. medical schools. And some specialties, pediatrics, now OBGYN, more and more women going into those fields. And I read an article recently posted on LinkedIn talking about people worried, I'm not going to be able to find a pediatrician because the reimbursement rates are so low. Medical students aren't going into pediatric specialties. The residencies aren't filling. And now we're going to have an even bigger shortage of pediatricians. So just really a lot of complicated circumstances that don't add up to a lot of hope, unfortunately. And that's why we're here, is to talk about what are the things we need to do differently so we can have more success.
Yes, and that was kind of what I was thinking too of, and I know that you've done so much work in this matter, but what can we do, not just for ourselves, but for in the culture? I'm thinking about it too, not just for you listening and in your career, but then also as we learn this information, what is our sense of responsibility for the incoming doctors? And again, because I work with medical students, I've been working with this lovely medical student. She's amazing. And just today, actually, because she's heard me talk about all these things, because I always take an opportunity to talk to them about balance and well-being and coaching. I'm like planting my seeds early. And she was asking me of why was I transitioning more into coaching, and how did I keep myself balanced, and how do I deal when the circumstances are difficult and I'm struggling. I'm like, oh my goodness, I wish everyone had this clarity to ask these questions at such a young age, to prepare. Talk about preparation as a medical student. She was telling me, I love medicine, but I don't want these practices to not be in alignment with my values. I'm like, oh my God, you are
Oh,
amazing.
that's
And I
great.
was like thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, knowing that we were going to talk about this today of what can we do at any point in our career, because the answer is not always leave medicine. Like you said earlier, there's a lot that we can do, modifications bigger and smaller, to stay in medicine. We have so many people doing this work. So what are some of your thoughts?
I may have shared some dire statistics, and that's just to raise awareness. If you might be wondering, what's going on? Why am I struggling? There are a lot of statistics. So that's the awareness raising. But there's also, I want to raise hope. So there is hope. And I love when I see the clients that I'm working with who use the word dread Sunday scaries because of work is coming up on Monday, and they have all these barriers, and they're thinking about changing positions, changing job location, moving practices. And yet, with coaching support, we've been able to get to a place where they're now leaning into not only their work, but leadership positions, holding the same job. The same transition happened for me. So coaching has been proving itself in the research. There's more and more research showing coaching, and even for women residents, showing great benefits, practicing physicians. So there's research out there showing coaching and help, and yet coaching is not part of the backbone of most medical practices. I know in my area, I don't think there's any other physician coaches in my whole several county radius. And so can we make that more mainstream, getting the support we need? When there's mental health issues, we've talked about barriers to mental health access because of stigma, worried about implications on licensing, worried about your reputation, etc. And we're making some inroads on changing how the questions are asked about mental health with licensing. So nationwide, there's becoming some shifts in there. And getting access to support, if it's mental health support, coaching support, asking your family support, those things are going to help you, because I look at it when I tell my family, like, my plate feels like it's 190% overfilled. You take 2 or 3% off that plate, it's going to feel enormous. So recognizing how can you get help and support, again, from professional support, counseling, coaching, finding out what resources are available through your organizations and seeing if that would be helpful. I know one organization that I was hearing about, they offer concierge help to help you buy a car, help you plan a vacation. How amazing is that? So finding out, are there resources, and then take the time to tap into those to offload your plate. Another big aspect that I think can be impactful as far as what can we do about it is this idea of creating community. So I just had this conversation with a pre-med yesterday, and we were talking about going to med school classes. And she was sharing with me, now that it's been 30 years since I graduated, you don't always have to go to class for medical school. And they could do it remotely, not go. There's other ways of learning the material. And I said, I hope you're planning on going to class, because when you get in community with people, you have entirely different outcomes, that in-person connection, that in-person rapport. And are you being in community, not just with random people, but with the right people who are, I call it like people collecting. When I've been doing different conferences over the last 8 years, I've collected people, and I wrote down a list of 50 people that I have connected with over the last 8 years that are my support people. Some people I don't think have 1, 2, or 3. So if you are not in a community, I'm on the board of our medical society. Get involved with your local medical society if you have one. Get involved with an interest group, with your kids' parenting group, whatever it is, or even within your organization. We need community. We need like-minded people that we can share with and have that pour into ourselves so that we're not running depleted. So finding what's the right community for you that's going to help you not feel depleted, to help you feel understood, and have that right support so you're not feeling isolated and alone.
So good. Yeah. Thank you for, it always touches my heart when we talk about mental health and, tapping into those resources, because like we've talked in this podcast before, there's so much stigma, and not just external stigma, but even the way we talk to ourselves, like, oh, you shouldn't be struggling like this. You shouldn't need that kind of help. So, normalizing the resources and reaching out, it's so important. And, you know, decreasing the burdens that get us to burnout, and having a culture where we're all redefining this idea of fulfillment and balance and success, rather than just numbers, right? And feeling like we're not alone. I love that. So many important things here. And I am so glad that we're having this conversation. I know that we could go so deep into so many more topics here, but I'm glad that we're bringing it up, because I know these are conversations that I'm having and people reach out to me, but we're not having them in the consistency or the openness that we should. And, recognizing that a lot of doctors are leaving medicine, mainly because of burnout, lack of support, not having the right community. Then unfortunately we're seeing it more so in women, even though, right, like we like you talked about that second shift and how we're providing amazing medicine, and tapping into different ways that we can feel balanced, so that we don't feel like we just need to leave, and that there are things that we can do. Like, we love coaching, of course. It's like I always say, it's magnificent way to promote health-seeking behaviors and to gather more of that balance, that sense of autonomy, redefining success, and promoting well-being and mental health. And I love what you said, know your resources, because I think sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we get tunnel visioned and we think that we're stuck, like there's no way out or no real help. And there might be more around you than what you're recognizing, and having a good community of the right people can make the biggest difference. And Erin, tell me what else comes to mind, any pearls of wisdom to add to this wonderful conversation?
Well, just like we were talking about in the last episode that we recorded, the idea of clarity. I know that there's a high performance indicator assessment that I share with my coaching clients, and it has them assess and asks different questions about their clarity, about their energy, which so oftentimes is so low in women in medicine, in their productivity, in their influence, and it's just an assessment, and then it kind of gives them clarity. Oh wow, like I'm rating a 2 or a 3 out of 5. I wonder what would happen if I can change this. So maybe there's some tools, or maybe there's some friends or colleagues out there. You can seek some clarity to find out where is it that you're struggling most, and then get curious about what resources are out there. Maybe we've named some today that you can tap into. And if you need more input, you can always reach out to either one of us about getting some clarity on what are the things specific to you. One size doesn't fit all. What are your issues you're dealing with? And what are the resources that you can find to help get you going in the direction that you want to in your life? And sometimes that takes another person to help you get that clarity.
Lovely. Again, such a good, important conversation. And if you haven't yet, Erin and I have a favor to ask. Please go to the show in the page where the podcast shows up. Scroll down and give us a rating and a review. That is how you're going to help us grow this show and help us reach more people. And feel free to let us know what else you would want to hear more from us. And stay tuned for our next episode.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.